this is Carrie the Canary Quilts, and this is the Piece and Quilt Quilt-along that Fat Quarter Shop is doing. And what I've been doing each month is working with the paper piece kit that they sent out. If you bought it, you don't need the paper pieces to do this quilt, but they did have a kit of It's So Emma pads and rolls to use to put all these blocks together to make it a little bit easier. There's a lot of half square triangles. There's like this one has flying geese, and then there's some square and squares. So that's the type of things you got in this kit when you ordered it. So that's what I'm doing each month, is I'm going through the blocks for each month. This is this September. And showing you which rolls and pads to use and then how they work if you're unfamiliar with them or you're just new to paper piecing. So this is, like I said, a Fat Quarter Shop quilt along. They are using the book Celebrate with Quilts by Lissa Alexander and Susan Aki. There are several quilts in here, and there's several blocks. And each quilt is made up of all the blocks that are in here, so it just tells you which page to go to find the block. So we're working on the quilt that's called Piece and Quilt. So I will have links to all of this down below. If you're new to this and you want to join along or just grab the book. So in September, we have our little chart here that tells us all the blocks for each month. In September, we have 6 and 9 inch, 9-inch scrap basket, and we need 4 of those. That's what this is. And we have 2 colorways. So I have these 2 in one colorway and these 2 in another colorway. Have not put these together. I think they're going to go in different rows, kind of like this big one back here did. That's made up of 4 different blocks too. And then we have the 12-inch rosebud, which is this one, and then the 12-inch broken dishes, which is this one. And I have this one pinned up because we used all paper pieces. 3 different types of the It's So Emma paper pieces to put this one together. I love paper piecing. I love showing people how to paper piece. I just think that it makes my blocks much more square, and I leave the paper pieces in because if this is going to be sitting for some time before I actually put it together, it helps keep the block from going wonky, but you don't have to do that. So that's what I'm doing here. Let me know how it's going for you. I know a lot of people are doing this quilt along, and a lot of you have the paper pieces. But again, you don't need the paper pieces to do this. Just want to let you know that so you can grab the book and you can work along with us. Anyway, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. You get notified of Piece and Quilt and all the other fun content we got going on here. So let's get to paper piecing. To get started on September Piece and Quilt sampler, this is, like I stated before, a Fat Quarter Shop quilt along. I am using their kit that they sent, the box that they sent full of the It's So Emma paper pieces or rolls or tablets that we're going to need for this quilt. We have 3 blocks this month. Our first block is a 9-inch scrap basket. That's what it's going to look like right there. It is 2 colors, so we need 4 of them. But if you look at the quilt, the block, there's 2 of one colorway and 2 of another colorway. So I've got my fabrics ready. This is going to be one colorway. This one's going to be another. This is going to be my background. And that one is on page 64. And for the 9-inch scrap basket, we're going to need half square triangles. You can see that up here. We're going to need some half square triangles. So we're going to need 8 of one color for 2 blocks, which would be the pink in this color, and it's going to be the peach in mine. And then we need 12 for 2 blocks of the other color, which is going to be blue in mine, and it's blue on here also. So it also calls for a unfinished 2 3/4 inch half square triangle. So what you have to do is you have to subtract 1/2 inch and go and look for the 2 1/4 inch finished half square triangles in the It's So Emma rolls. All right. So I said I need 8 and 12 for each colorway. Let me move this out of the way and let me show you, and I'll show you how I do the cutting for that. So let me get this off. All right. So I need 8 of my peach, and as you can see, there is 4. We're going to get 4 blocks from each row here. So I'm going to need 8. So I'm going to cut 2 rows. That's for that peach color. I'm going to cut another 2 rows. For this peach color. Now we need 12 of our blues. So I'm going to cut 3 rows. And that's for our blue. And another 3 rows for our other blue. All right, got my papers cut. And I'm just going to put this away because I don't need any more. So for my peach on this side, on this colorway, I'm just going to take my fabric. It does tell you how wide to cut your fabric, and then you cut it the length of your rows, but I literally just cut around my paper. All right, so that one's done. And then I can put that color away. I'm going to take my blue, and I'm going to do the same thing with this bigger piece. I think I need a new blade. All right, so there's my blue. I've just cut it bigger than the piece of paper I have. All right, so I'm going to repeat for these colors over here. I have my 2 colorways cut here. And now I need to get my white cut, my light. And I am just going to use my fabric. So I pretty much have the same size fabric. And I need 2 of these. I'm just going to move it over and cut again. To get started on these, we want to put them right sides together. I'm going to center these so that I have both fabrics all the way around. And then I'm just going to throw some pins in this blank space, just to keep it from moving. Just like that. And I'm going to repeat for the other colors here. And for these little ones, I'm just going to put a couple in the center here. I just don't want my paper to shift on me till I start putting my seams in. All right, there we go. They're all ready to take over the machine. Fabrics are right side together. Papers are pinned on so that I have fabric all the way around. And now when I go over to my machine, I will do all of these at the same time. I am going to go, I have my machine set at a lower stitch length. So my default is 2.2. I've changed it to 1.6. And then I'm just going to go over to my machine and follow the arrows on this dashed line. Come down here. And come down here and just keep going till all my dashed lines have been stitched in the direction of the arrows. It's going to be the same for all of these. So I'm going to get these all stitched up and then we can take a look at them. Here are my paper pieces all sewn up. You can kind of see my black thread there, and you can see it here. And now I'm ready to get these cut out. So to do that, first I'm going to cut around the edge. On the solid line. All right, there's all my edges cut. Now I'm going to cut them on the horizontal and vertical line. And now I can cut them on the diagonal. And we get our half square triangle. So I'm going to get everything cut up. I'm going to get all these ironed out. They say to iron them open. So that's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to get these all cut. I'm going to get them ironed open, and then I'm going to get all the tails trimmed off. There we go. There's all my half square triangles done. Oh, they're so pretty. I ironed them open. I got their tails trimmed. So I'm going to get my black slate out and put it together. But that's how I do my half square triangles with the It's So Emma paper piecing rolls. All right, I'm going to get my block done and I'll show you what it looks like. Oh, the other thing is I usually tear all my papers at the end. It's up to you when you tear your papers off. That's just what I like to do. Here's my first 4 blocks. The 9-inch scrap baskets, and the paper piece you'll be using is the 2 1/4 inch finished half square triangle. So that's how it's going to look in the quilt, but I don't believe we put it together yet because they're going to go in different rows. So I will put these aside till those rows are assembled. The next block we're going to work on is the 12-inch rosebud block. This is what it's going to look like. It is 2-color in the piece and quilt also. So here's the colors I've chosen. I've got teal and orange in my background. You can see we have a pinwheel in the middle, which is half square triangles. And those half square triangles will be made from the 4-inch finished It's So Emma half square triangle roll. And then the little half square triangles around the side will be from the 2-inch finished half square triangle It's So Emma rolls. You'll need 8 2-inch and you're going to need 4 4-inches. So this shouldn't be hard to put together at all. I'm going to get I'm going to show you how to cut the papers that I need and cut them from the fabrics, and then we'll put it together. So to get 4 half square triangles, we're going to cut 1 row. And I'm just going to carefully just trim it off right on the line in between the rows. There we go. And my inside pinwheel is going to be this teal. And I am going to just lay this out and cut a piece that is bigger. There we go. All right, for the little triangles around the edge, we need the 2-inch finished half square triangle roll, and we need 8 of them. So each row does 4, so I need 2 rows. So I'm going to cut again right here, so I have 2 rows. There we go. Grab my orange. I might do it right here. Just cut that off. All right, I've got my orange and my teal, and I'm going to use those fabrics to cut out my background. So my teal works perfect right there. Just cut evenly. All right, there's the white for my teal. And the white for my orange. Whoops, I want the fabric. All right, we want to put our fabrics right sides together. Lay our paper down so that we have both fabrics are on the outside of the paper. And I'm going to pin on the inside. Just put 2 pins in. And then for the teal, I'll need this. Let's put right sides together. Put our paper on, and I'm just going to, I think one will work here. All right, now we take it over to the machine with our shortened stitch and follow the arrows on the dotted line, and then we'll come back and get these cut out. Here's my pieces ready to be cut. I'm going to start with the larger one. I cut my outside pieces, or my outside lines first, and it's always the solid line that you cut on. So I personally cut all the outside first, and then I go to the inside. I'm going to cut on this horizontal line and then cut on the vertical line. And in the pattern, it's saying to iron towards the dark fabric. There we go. There's my half square triangles. I'm going to get this one cut up. I'm going to get them all ironed up and get the block put together. Go together pretty easily. There's my orange half square triangles. So once I get these ironed, I'm going to get the tails trimmed off. Then it's just laying the block out and sewing it together. There we go. I just laid the block out. I wanted to show you my half square triangles before I actually got them sewn together. I love doing it this way. It just makes for such a square block. There we go. There's my block put together. I wanted to let you see it, even though you probably saw it in the beginning of the video. I like the colors I chose. They're really pretty. Our next block is broken dishes. We need the 12-inch version. It's going to be 2-color, and that can be found on page 18. And we're going to need several different items for this block. For the center of the block, we will need a 6-inch square and a square. And then for the centers of the outside of the block, we will need the 3-inch by 6-inch flying geese pad of paper. And then for the corners, we need the 3-inch half square triangle roll. So we can just not even look at the cutting directions on this. We will only do the cutting directions on these, and then we'll put it together and make the block. So let me get set up. These are my 2 colors that I'm going to be using. So let me get set up to get all this cut out. First thing I'm going to cut is the 3-inch finished half square triangles. We need 4 of these. And we get 4 in one row. So I'm just going to cut 1 row off. There we go. And I'm going to, I think what I'll do with this one is put my 2 fat quarters together and cut them at the same time. There we go. I'm just going to cut it out from down here. Cut it bigger than your paper. And there we go. I am ready for the half square triangles. All right. For the square and a square, I'm going to need one piece of the paper. So let me get one ripped out. Yeah, it didn't rip very well, but that's okay. And then in the instructions back here on the back of the front of the pad is the instructions on cutting your fabric. So number 1 is going to be the light fabric. And it tells you placement number 1. All right, so I need a 5 1/4 inch square. I'm going to get my ruler out and I'm going to cut myself. It doesn't need to be a perfect square. It needs to be just at least 5 1/4. So that's going to be my placement number 1. And then for 2, 3, 4, and 5, I need to cut 2 5-inch squares cut on the diagonal. So I'm going to get my 2 5-inch squares. Whoops, I need a different color fabric. I was getting excited there. All right, this one. I need 2 5-inch squares cut on the diagonal. I'm just going to put these together and cut them both on the diagonal at the same time. All right, there's my 4 corners. So we're all set to do our square and a square. I'm going to keep it over here, even though I know how to do this. I just want to do that for now. And then our 6-inch flying geese. We need 4 flying geese. So there's 2, and I need another one. So we need 2 pieces of paper for that. I'm going to go back to the instructions in the front. And number 1 placement is going to be for me, it's going to be yellow. And I need a bigger ruler because I need a 7 by 7 3/4. So I'm going to cut myself a 7 by 7 3/4 inch rectangle. And I need 2 of these. So I need to cut another one. 7 by 7 3/4. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to be at least 7 and 7 3/4. All right, so now I need my white again, and I need to cut the corners. And the corners are placement 2 and 3. 2 and 3, I need 2 4 1/2 inch squares cut on the diagonal, and I have 2 pieces of paper, so I need 4 of these. All right, I have my 4 4 1/2 inch squares. The reason I have 4 of them is because I have 2 sheets of paper I'm working with, and the instructions are for 1 sheet. So I need to double everything, and I need to cut it on the diagonal. And these are going to be our placements 2 and 3, which are the corners of our flying geese. All right, there we go. There's our papers for the flying geese, our bases, and our corners. And I'm going to keep this with the flying geese also for now. All right, let's start with the half square triangles. We've done this the last 2 times. Right sides together. Pin your paper down. Follow the dashed lines in the direction of the arrows with your stitch reduced down. Okay, there's that one. Let's start with the flying geese. So what we want to do here, and the instructions are right here on how to do it, is we want to go to the back of our paper, and let me draw it out for you. The dash line is where we want our fabric to be, but we will ultimately cut on the solid line. And it says that right here, trim on this line. So we're going to be cutting on the solid line eventually. You can see that this fits perfectly in the dashed line. So I'm just going to set up my corners of the dashed line right here. And I want my fabric to be facing up on the back of the paper. And I am going to pin it in the middle here. This is big enough that I know in the middle is not going to be where I'm going to be trimming. All right, there we go. I want to do the same thing for this one. So we're going to turn this over. I'm going to start with 2, and I'm going to do 2 on both sides. I'm going to take my paper here. This is like cardstock. You can use anything you've got that's strong enough. I'm going to fold it on the line between 1 and 2. And then I am going to trim it 1/4 of an inch. And that's our first cut. Second cut is going to be this number 2. I'm going to do the same thing. All right. What we can do now is take our triangles that we cut and just going to kind of center it. The point that I'm going for is right here. It looks fairly lined up. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Point I'm going for is right there. Just kind of line it up, eyeball it. Now, I'm just going to take a pin without disturbing anything. Pin these in place. My 2 pins that I've got. Okay, so that is pinned down in place. We can go over our machine and with a reduced stitch length, sew on this line right here between 1 and 2. And you can come all the way up here and come out there. And the same thing over here. So let me do that. All right, taking my pins out, that's what it looks like. I'm going to go over to my iron and I'm going to iron it over, and you can see that it goes past the mark I made. The mark I made was on the cut line, and so does this one. All right, there's our first 2 corners. So let's turn it back over. We're going to go to number 3. We're going to do the same thing where we are going to fold it over, trim it, go to this number 3, fold it over the line, trim it, and do the same thing. Line up our corners. This is the corner I'm headed towards. So I want to go there and here. So I'm going to get these sewn on. This just like I did before. Sew on the line between 1 and 3. And I'll bring it back. Here's my 2 other corners, and you can see they go past my marked lines. So I'm going to get these ironed up. And there we go. My first one is done. So we can turn it over and trim it. I'm going to trim my outsides first. I am trimming on the solid line here. I'm going to combine these 2 together and just make it one line. All right, 4 sides are down. Now I need to trim on these bottom lines for the flying geese. Let's see, there we go. And there's my 2 flying geese. So I can finish up these 2 later with my half square triangles. And all the instructions of what I just did are on the back of the front cover. So let's go to the square and a square. There's the instructions on the back of the cover. And this one, I need to draw the lines on this one. They are hard to see. All right, there we go. Number 1's in there. 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right. This one is going to go with the white in the middle. I'm going to lay it so it's 1/4 inch over 2. And you can't see any of the lines I drew. I'm going to take one of my triangles here. And I'm just going to, let's pin it once I get it over. Let's do that. There we go. And then I'm going to lay my yellow triangle. So I'm going to eyeball these points. And I'm going to sew. Actually, I'm only going to sew from this point to this point, so I don't have to fuss with these seams when I'm trying to trim next to them. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is sew from this point to this point, lock stitching at each end. There it is. I'm going to now iron it towards the corner. And we can take our pin out. So I'm going to go to the other side to number 3 and fold it on the solid line and trim our 1/4 inch. And again, line up our corner. And I'm going to sew from this point to this point between 1 and 3, lock stitching on each side. There's my 3rd piece. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do 4 and 5 at the same time at my machine. So I'm going to trim on this side, and I'm going to trim on this side. And I'm just going to go over to my machine. I'm going to line these up, and I'm going to sew them on. I'm going to sew this 4 on, and then I'm going to sew 5 on at the same time so I can get both corners done. So this time you can sew all the way across. Okay, there's both of my triangles sewn on. I'm going to get them ironed. There we go. Now all that's left to do is trim it up. And it even tells you right here to trim on this line right here. You're going to trim on this solid line all the way around. And there's our square and a square. And again, the instructions are also on the back of the cover of the pad. So you can see how I did it, and then you can refer to the instructions. So I am going to finish up my other 2 flying geese, and I'm going to do my half square triangles, which we've done in the last 2 blocks, so we know how to do those. And then I'll be ready to assemble the block. Probably the biggest thing is you need to remember that the base of your flying geese, even though it looks white here, for this block will be your dark color. So you need to, that's just something you need to think about when you're getting ready to do the flying geese. There we go. Just wanted to show you all my pieces. My flying geese that I did are in here, my square and a square, and then my half square triangles. I think that might be the first block where the entire thing is made out of the It's So Emma paper piece. Tablets or rolls. Oh, look at that block. That turned out beautiful. All right, that is the paper pieces for Piece and Quilt. That quilt is in Celebrate with Quilts by Lissa Alexander and Susan Aki, and I do have a link to this book down below. Fat Quarter Shop sold a kit which had all the paper piece pads and rolls that you would need for this. So if you bought it, I'm just going through those during this quilt along, showing you how to do them, which ones to use in each block, and putting this beautiful quilt together. So there's my blocks. Let me know how it turned out for you. Let me know how it's going for you. And this is fun. I'm really enjoying this. I love paper piecing anyway. And hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to follow along with this, or if you want to keep up with us if you're doing this quilt. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.